Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a couple cards for this week's Color Throwdown Challenge. If you're new, the Color Throwdown Challenge is just a weekly challenge just for fun. I always link to it in my blog post. That will be linked directly below the video. You can check it out. Anyone can play along. Fun times. This one threw me for a loop. It took me a bit. This is why I love the challenge. It gets me thinking outside the box, using color combos I would never reach for or think of, etc. And yeah, I used a couple of the newer Honeybee Stamps Lovely Layers set. Again, if you're new or if you want to refresh, I have many videos. I have an entire playlist. I'll have it linked in the end screen at the end of this video. My playlist of videos I've done using various Honeybee Lovely Layers sets, because there's florals, there's so many. There's so many. I haven't even got to all of them yet. Working my way there. Anyway, used a couple of those, did some ink blending, and I pulled out the wax seal supplies. It's been a while since I have shown making wax seals in a video. Same thing. I'll link to my playlist using wax seals at the end of this one for anyone that is curious, wants a refresh, etc. I collect them. I hoard them. I love it. I don't use them in videos very often, but they worked this time. I had loads of fun. So I think that's all the housekeeping for this video. As always, links to everything I used will be listed and linked in the description box below the video. All my links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links, end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It's what helps pay the bills, keeps the channel going. And let's get into making these cards. Okay, so I'm starting off with the fabulous Lovely Layers Beach Bound die set. Seriously. I don't even have words for how I felt when I saw this in Honeybee's most recent release. I have always wanted one of these vehicles in real life. Love them. Love, love. Someday I will possibly get one. But for now, I can make them in paper. And I have been holding off creating anything with it because I have overthought it and wanted to make it in like neon green and hot pink and all the colors. All the colors. Sky's the limit, man. That's another reason why I like the Color Throwdown Challenge. It makes me kind of step back a bit, and you know, the color's already chosen, so I need to make it work, and that's what I did. I'm doing 2 cards because, as always, when I've got everything out, why not, you know, die cut a couple. And I stuck the pieces that I am ink blending onto just one of my Altenew like grip mats. And I'm using Altenew's Fresh Dye inks to add color to these die cuts. Everything's going to kind of look a little bit like a hot mess until I adhere all the pieces together. But I'm making my little camper van purple. And she's just going to be the cutest little thing. And I did very, very pale blues on those pieces that will be the windshield. And then I used the hydrangea and ultraviolet on the base, the body of the vehicle, and blended that on there, and then realized I needed to put these little die cut circles. I did all my die cutting like I generally do now before starting filming because it's boring. It's boring to watch that. And yeah, I die cut everything from smooth white cardstock, a couple elements from black cardstock, and then some of the little additions I use silver matte cardstock. And once this all comes together, it's just perfection. And like all of Honeybee's Lovely Layers sets, regardless of whether they're florals or vehicles or whatever, they're pretty easy to assemble. There are layering guides on their website that you can download. I find even just looking at the image, it generally all makes sense. So I just went along and assembled. It comes in handy having my little reverse tweezers, my little embellishment wand for some of the smaller, you know, little die cuts. And you can't really see it much on camera, but there's always deboss details as well that really helps to show where, you know, some of these little elements go, like the little headlights and whatnot. So yeah, I look at it. Once this came together, I was like, okay, this is just the cutest thing ever. And yeah, I need more hours in the day because I would make these in like all the colors. Oh, pattern paper. how cute would this look? You know, instead of the purple, do like some funky floral pattern paper. Seriously. Anyway, I just kept assembling. I just used my craft tacky glue, and yeah, I used matte silver cardstock for some of these little details here. And yeah, the little reverse mirrors. I love the side mirrors. Like how I can't. My brain is like just completely losing its mind. So little windshield wipers and the little tires I die cut from just black cardstock. Adhered those into place, and same thing, once those are in place, it's like, okay, this is just, it's just too cute for words. So after I assembled one off camera, I assembled the second one, super simple. And then for my background, once I got this fully assembled, like this little camper van, it's quite large. It's, you know, you can tell it's not a teeny little die cut. It's like roughly 3 inches. The size again is listed on the website, but like I always say, it's one thing to see the measurements, but when you actually have it like in front of you, totally different. So it's a good size. So I decided to make these into 5x7 cards. So this panel of cardstock is 4x6 inches because I'm going to like layer this on top of my card base. And I masked off just a section here, and I'm going to do a very simple ink blend with yellows and oranges because this, like I said, this color challenge kind of threw me because it was purple, yellow, and orange. And I was like, what am I going to do? But the inspiration photo for it was one part of it. And that's when I was like, oh, you know, kind of a beach scene. And then it just kind of kept evolving to what it is now. So I'm using a couple of yellows, and I'm using a larger blending brush for this. And I started with like a lighter yellow and then a medium yellow. And then I'm going to go in with a couple of oranges and just create kind of like a setting sun sort of a deal here. And taking my time with the blending, I've sped this up in editing, but in real time, I took my time with the blending just to get a nice blend. These inks do soften and smooth as they dry and like absorb into the cardstock. So it's another reason why I like them, because anything that makes my job easier, you know, so I don't have to work as hard, I'm here for it. So I blended all this on, and then I used this Altenew satin tape to do the masking. You could also use like Post-it tape. The thing to remember with like the satin tape, or if you use like painter's tape, things like that, is when it's like pressed onto smooth white cardstock like this, as you can see, I kind of like almost peel the tape off like right against it, and I go slow so that I don't tear any of the cardstock, and you get like the crispest edge. I don't do this very often, like masking and ink blending like this, but it is satisfying. So I peeled that off, did it a second time, and then set those aside because, again, like my brain was going in 5 million directions. And I was like, when I was digging through things, I was like, oh, I have a wax seal that is perfect for these cards. So like I said in the intro, I will have a link to a playlist at the end of this video. There's not very many videos in that playlist currently, but I've done lives and like really talked in depth about making wax seals, etc. So I'm not really going to get into it here. But the big thing always is, one, I have a tea light lit there, and then I put the little furnace on top. I make sure that there, you know, I've cleared my space around that tea light because we're playing with flame. All this stuff is flammable. I am not going anywhere. I don't leave it unattended. And then the other thing is it gets very hot. Obviously, we're dealing with open flame. So I'm working on my little Bee Silicone Mat. I highly recommend this. Those wells on the left-hand side, I don't use those to make my wax seals because I know I'm going to get asked. I don't. You need to use a fair bit more wax than I normally would use to fill in one of those molds to get like a perfectly round seal. I don't worry about it. I don't need perfection. I like wax seals. I like them being a little wonky. But if you want them to be perfectly round, you can use those wells. You just have to use more wax. The wells are meant to hold the wax stamper like I just used, and to, you know, hold your tools, things like that. So I just melted the wax. I used a couple different yellows, and I'll have the links to the 2 collections I used. This first one, you can't really tell, but I messed it up. I got a little impatient, and I poked it with my fingernail, and I ruined the edge, and that annoyed me. But it's wax. I can remelt it. Not a big deal. So the thing is just to get the wax to melt. It takes about 4-ish of this size of little wax beads to create a wax seal. You can do this directly onto your project. I have done that and shown that. It's a little more nerve-wracking, and since it's been a while since I've like played with these, I didn't want to do it directly onto my project, so that's why I'm creating them on the little silicone mat. So once the wax was melted, I poured it out, pressed the stamper into it, and then you just let it cool off. And then that piece that I had racked, I cut it up, stuck it right back in the melting spoon, and I'm going to let that melt, and I can make another one. No biggie. So this time, after I remove the stamper, I'm going to let it cool off before I poke it with my fingers. And then I repeated it with the second one. And then whatever's left in my melting spoon, I just pour that out, and then I'll just stick it. I let it cool off, and I stick that piece like right back into the container with the other ones. And to clean it, I use paper towel while it's still super hot. So again, being very careful, that spoon is incredibly hot. So I've got my paper towel doubled up. Another thing you can do is just let it cool, and the wax will peel out of the spoon as well. It just kind of depends on my mood, which method I prefer to do. So, and yeah, the leftover wax, I stick right back into the container. It's good to go. So now I've got my two little wax seals here, and they're super cute. Just as is, they're cute, but I'm going to enhance them a bit. It's a little bit wonky, but that's how they're supposed to be, in my opinion. You know, perfection as always is overrated. So one way I like to add like detail to wax seals is metallic paint markers. These work really well. You don't want to use like water-based markers, you know, anything, or like water reactive type markers. They won't, this is wax. It will not dry. It will not adhere. You need things like these metallic paint markers. There's other things you can potentially try, but I find these work like the best. And I just, you know, shook it up really, really well, and then rub this across the raised edges. So these raised palm trees. And that way it gives it definition. Plus it brings in the silver, because I was using like silver matte cardstock for my die cuts. And I'm going to add a little bit of silver splatter too to the background just to tie it all together. So I did all that and then set those aside to dry. It dries pretty quickly. And then splatter, like I said. So I pulled out some picket fence paper splatter watercolor. This is liquid silver locket. And shook that up, stuck a bit on my palette. I have both my backgrounds in my splat box, and I'm just using a little brush this time. And I was trying to be light-handed with this, like just a very moderate, just a little splatter. This is me being moderate, you guys. In my head, I was like, oh, I'll just have like a few, like 3 splatter, you know? I don't even know why I bother trying. Like, I can't do light-handed anything. This is even in the end, like I did a lot with these cards, but this is still like, this is my version of clean and simple. So anyway, I added silver, and then I wanted to add black splatter too. And same thing. I was like, I'll just add just a little bit, just a smidge. It's less than I normally add, you know, but it was still a fair bit. I'm okay with it. I shake my head at myself, you know. So I put just a smidge of black gouache on my little palette, watered it down with a little bit of water, and then same thing, added some splatter to these backgrounds, and then set those aside to dry. And then the other Lovely Layers set I used, this is the Lovely Layers Hammock set. This set also just chef's kiss. I only used the palm trees. I didn't use the hammock because I just wanted the palm trees in the background, and I die cut them from black cardstock. So here on camera, they don't look like much. You can tell in the photos, which they'll be at the end of the video. I'll also have them on my blog. You can see all the deboss detail that is added to these die cuts. That is something I just really, really love. I love that brands are doing this because it adds so much like depth and definition to die cuts with zero effort, because it just happens when you die cut. It also makes it really difficult because I die cut these from black to actually see what I'm doing, but these came together very easily because all the areas that don't have the debossing detail is what gets adhered to the next layer. Hopefully that makes sense. And it all fits. It all comes together. It's super simple. So I die cut these from black because I was thinking like, you know, that silhouette look. And plus I don't want to do color because it wouldn't fit in with the color challenge. So I die cut them from black cardstock. It's another reason why I love the challenge. It makes me kind of think out of the box because I wouldn't have thought to do this, you know? So I die cut them. And then after I had them die cut, my backgrounds are now completely dry. So I can start assembling my card fronts. So baker's twine, for the win, as always. So grab some baker's twine from my stash, wrap that around the card front here. I'm going to tie it in a knot, use my reverse tweezers to hold that knot so I can fiddle around with my little bow, you know, getting it the way I want it. And then once I'm happy with it, pull it tight, remove the reverse tweezers, pull it tight again, and then I can trim off the excess with my scissors. And then I'm going to adhere my little palm trees here. So kept everything kind of separate until, you know, I had them where I wanted them. And then same thing, they just kind of line up. It all makes sense when you're putting it all together. So got those adhered into place again with Craft Tacky Glue. And then the wax seal. I've talked about this in the other videos with wax seals. To adhere wax seals, you need a very strong adhesive, not liquid adhesive. I do not recommend liquid adhesive. Again, we're dealing with wax. Wax resists everything. You might think it's going to hold just whatever you know, if you've glued a wax seal with a liquid adhesive, give it the tiniest little nudge. It'll probably just pop right off. You want strong adhesive. I'm using, these are Honeybee wax seal stickers. These work really well. This type of adhesive. Another option I've shown, red line adhesive, foam squares and foam tapes. Those work really well too, because they have what I call that dry adhesive that is really strong, and it works with these. So I like the wax seal stickers because they're super thin, so they're not going to add extra bulk, you know, because a wax seal does add a fair bit of bulk to a card front. So I just stuck one of those wax seal stickers, stuck that into place. And then to adhere my little camper van, I used foam squares. So pop those into place and then pop that onto the card front. I did the same thing on the second card front. And then for my sentiments, I have some royal purple cardstock. And I'm using the Sunkissed Summer Sentiment Set from Honeybee. And I picked out the sentiments I wanted, lined them up on the cardstock. I used my anti-static powder on the cardstock. That just helps prevent the embossing powder from clinging to anything other than the stamped sentiments. And the sentiments I was inking up with clear embossing ink and stamping them and inking them up multiple times, because I would rather stamp it multiple times with a light hand than, like, you don't want to be like pushing down, like doing CPR, you know, on your stamp positioner, your acrylic block, whatever, because then you're going to lose the definition. And especially with sentiments like this or really fine detail images, it's better to just lightly stamp and stamp multiple times than it is to like press, because that's when you'll lose the definition and then it looks kind of mushy, you know? So after I stamped them, I used detail white embossing powder, melted that with my heat tool. Once everything was smooth and melted, I just used my microfiber cloth to wipe away that excess anti-static powder. And then I used the coordinating wafer dies to die cut the sentiments. And then off camera, I also die cut like the remainder of this purple cardstock with the more narrower wafer die, and I'll show that later on because I'll use that to like build up dimension for the sentiments. So die cut those sentiments with the coordinating wafer die. And then to finish the insides of my cards, my card bases are going to be 5x7 cards. I pulled out a circle stencil set, and I'm going to use the interior part to figure out where I want to place this circle, where I want to stencil it, because I'm, you know, dealing with white cardstock. It's kind of hard to see what I'm doing. So using the circle to give me a guide of where I want to place it, and then remove that. And then I can blend now inside this circle stencil here. And I'm going to use those yellows and the one orange to blend this onto the inside of the card. So I just started on like the outer perimeter with the lighter yellow. And then I'm going to add a bit of that slightly darker shade. And then I'll add in just a smidge of that Snapdragon orange there into the middle and just blend all that together. And then I'll repeat that on the second card base. And that'll just give a little extra something, and it ties it in with the sentiment that I adhered to the inside. I'll show it at the end, but I just adhered the sentiment that says, "May you be sun-kissed." I thought that was cute, so I added a little sun to the insides of the cards. So once the insides were done, to adhere the card fronts, I just put just another piece of cardstock to the back of the, like adhered to the back of the card front panel. This will give it a smidge of dimension, but not, again, I'm trying not to create too much bulk since I've got like wax seals, multiple die cuts, the camper van popped up with foam tape, etc. So this will give that panel just, you know, just a bit of lift without creating a ton of bulk. And then the sentiments, I die cut the scraps with the coordinating wafer dye, and then adhered them together to give that a little bit more, you know, strength, bulk, etc. And then I'm going to adhere that directly to the card front. Once I've got that adhered into place, I dug through my multiple lifetime stash of bling, because you guys know I do. I've got so much. And I found a purple embellishment that matched, because purples are difficult, you know, they are difficult to get the right shade to match. And I happen to have some bling. So this is some Trinity Stamps Spacewalk confetti. So sprinkled that around both of these card fronts and then adhered those into place with dabs of craft tacky glue. And that finished off these cards. So like I said, this is my version of clean and simple. We got splatter and wax seals and metallic cardstock and ink blend, like all the things, but they were fun. They were super fun. So like I mentioned in the intro and then earlier in the video, I will have photos of these cards like in my blog post as well. It's a little easier to kind of see the close up and see the details, especially of those black die cuts. So I'll have those in the blog post as well as a link to the challenge. You can check that out below if you just expand the description box. Everything will be listed and linked for your convenience. And yeah, I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in supporting me over on Patreon, the link to that is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye.